My fiancé stuck me in the wedding cake during the wedding even though I asked him not to. Am I right that I want to break up with him? 2 days have passed since I exchanged vows. Our journey began 4 years ago with a year-long engagement. The nuances arose when I noticed Jake engrossed in prank videos, showcasing cringeworthy moments of brides. I promptly expressed my aversion to such antics at our wedding. He reassured me, jesting that he had no such intentions. I accepted his words but noticed peculiar arrangements with his friends. Despite assuming it was merely his support in planning, I reminded him sternly the day before that any such stunt would lead to an immediate breakup. The wedding day unfolded smoothly until the cake-cutting ceremony. As I poised for the first slice, camera ready, a sudden force shoved my head into the cake, smearing makeup and soiling my entire wedding attire. Laughter filled the room, Jake's being the most uproarious. In that poignant moment, as the photographer captured the scene, Jake declared it our wedding photo. Enraged, I pivoted, delivering a resounding slap to his face before fleeing the room, tears streaming down my cheeks. Fortunately, karma swiftly manifested itself in the form of Jake's own brother. Seeking solace, I sought refuge in the restroom, sobbing uncontrollably. Suddenly, the clamor of vehement shouting from the hall disrupted my anguish. It was Frank, Jake's brother. Struggling to decipher his words through sobs, I emerged from the restroom only to find Frank waiting for me. Frank revealed that Jake had something to convey to me. Trembling, Jake offered an apology without meeting my gaze. Frank insisted he face me directly and apologize once more. In that moment, even I felt a twinge of apprehension towards Frank, a man I'd always seen as kind and gentle. I had never witnessed his ire before. Jake apologized again under Frank's stern gaze. Subsequently, Frank guided us back to the now silent hall, where our families averted their eyes, their discomfort palpable. The festivities abruptly halted, and Frank, sensing my anger towards Jake, personally escorted me home. During the ride, Frank expressed regret for his outburst. He disclosed that Jake had a history of being cruel, even during their brotherly relationship, often using special occasions to humiliate Frank. During Frank's birthdays, my husband's conduct was abhorrent. He'd toss cake at Frank and wreck his presents. At the time, their parents dismissed it, attributing it to typical sibling behavior. Frank endured these humiliations until he witnessed my husband subjecting me to the same treatment. It was then that Frank realized my husband derived pleasure from humiliating others. When I asked Frank if separating from my husband would be an overreaction, he assured me it wouldn't be, stating that I deserved better, indifferent to his brother's sentiments, as Jake had brought this upon himself. Frank offered his help in gathering my belongings, sharing his contact information. Empowered by his support, I made the difficult decision to initiate separation and file for divorce. I communicated this to Jake and my family, but Jake dismissed it as a harmless prank. Both our families bombarded me with messages, labeling ending the marriage as absurd. Yet, I perceive it differently. If my husband disregards my repeated requests and promises, I cannot trust him, assuming that contrary actions might ensue, showing a disregard for my feelings. This breach of trust, despite numerous assurances, leaves me unable to rely on him. I recognize the implications of such behavior in graver situations where trust is paramount. Frank stands as my sole supporter in this decision, and despite being labeled as humorless or worse, I stand firm in my reasons for seeking a divorce. I headed to Jake's apartment to retrieve my belongings, opting to stay at my best friend's house in the interim. Taking up Frank's offer for assistance, we reached Jake's place, where he pleaded that it was merely a prank and not intended to harm me. However, all I could dwell on was how he had shattered my trust previously, leaving me unable to believe his claims of non-malice. When he spotted Frank, rage reddened his face, unleashing accusations against Frank for turning me against him. Yet, Jake was the architect of his own downfall. A heated argument ensued between Jake and Frank, with Frank recounting Jake's childhood transgressions. Dismissing the past, Jake urged Frank to toughen up and let bygones be bygones, an ironic stance considering Jake's refusal to change, remaining as reprehensible as before. Despite Jake's persistent attempts to communicate, Frank stood firm, interjecting and preventing Jake from reaching me. As we departed, Jake's furious slam of the door echoed our departure. To my dismay, he started spreading falsehoods to his family, alleging that Frank tried to poach me from him. Fortunately, I recognized his true nature before it was too late. Strangely, following this incident, my family inundated me with messages urging therapy instead of separation. Their persistence ceased only when I threatened to sever ties. Initially, I hadn't intended to share this, but countless suggestions prompted me to ask Frank out after we collected my things. Disappointingly, he declined, mentioning he's already seeing someone else. I disclosed this to end the inquiries and speculation. Let's get 1,000 subscribers on this channel. Love you.